Hi everyone, this is Krista Soria. Today I'm going to be talking to you about how to format your documents using APA documentation style with a specific focus on how to cite references in text. As you think about citing your references in text, there's a couple of questions that are important for you to ask yourself and then answer as well. One is, are you hoping to use a direct quotation from a different author? If so, I recommend using direct quotations judiciously. Sometimes the author has said something so well or so perfectly, or may say something controversially or something along those lines that really compels you to use a direct quote. And if so, it's important to take note of the page numbers from the article or the book, or if you're citing from a website, the paragraph number from which you're taking that particular quote. These factors are going to be really important when it comes to citing your references in your text. Additionally, you might want to ask if it's better to paraphrase or summarize what an author has written, and that's usually the best decision to make when it comes to citing information in text. It's important then to take note of the author's last names, the year of the article or the book publication, and it's often quite customary to cite several different sources in one sentence, and I'll show you what that looks like in just a few moments. Overall, it's important to remember that APA is a two-part system, so if you have a citation listed in your references, you need to actually cite that reference up in your text, and if something is cited in text, then you need to actually list it in your references. APA does not have a works consulted ideal, and so it's really important to think about, okay, if you're going to list something in your references section, your reader actually needs to see that cited up in your text somewhere. I've got a couple of examples here of how to cite a direct quotation from what might be a journal article or a book. So here I've got Soria, Johnson, and Reinhardt discovered that first-generation college students, quote, do not participate as equally in leadership positions in student clubs or organizations. It's not a very good example because it would be really easy to paraphrase that particular quotation, but I'm just listing it here so you can see what to include in text. So one is be sure to list all of the authors, especially the first time that you cite them. This particular rule is important when you're listing authors that are under 5. So if there's 5 or under authors, you need to write them all out the first time that you cite them. And then thereafter you can use et al, which means and others, in text. So if you're going to write Soria et al. Reflected that college students have a tremendous capacity for leadership, and we can see that that quotation was found on page 14 of their particular text. This is perfectly acceptable as long as you first list all the authors in text at least one time. If you're summarizing information, you can which is really recommended overall. You can just list all the authors in text. So I have Soria, Roberts, and Reinhardt, and you'll see here that there's a comma and an ampersand, and then to distinguish between the authors you're going to use a semicolon. So next I've cited Stevens, Marcus, Anderson, Miles, and Ahmed, and be sure to list these alphabetically. So if it were Zuckerberg and Stevens, then you would restate this to write Stevens, a Stevens citation, and then Zuckerberg with the second citation. So just be sure to keep those alphabetical in terms of the first author. And then I have another example here of that sort of abbreviated style because there's 3 authors in the first one and there are 5 authors in the second one. So you would write Soria et al. Plus then the year right afterwards, and Stevens et al. Plus the year right afterwards along with that summary. And here's a very brief example of how this would look in an actual Word document. Another shortcut or trick is that the first time that you cite the author, if it's cited in a parentheses or even on its own, the second time that you list that author, and indeed if this is only true if it's the exact same citation, but the second time that you list it and any time thereafter, in the same paragraph, you don't need to provide the year. So here I have George Koo is cited here, 2008. I'm referencing Koo here again, and I don't need the 2008 there. However, any time that you need to list the author in a parentheses, then you definitely need the year. Please let me know if you have any questions. Thank you.